Marvel. Randomly loading a protagonist template introduction. Traveled through, arrived at the extremely dangerous Marvel, or the illuminated 838 universe. Coincidentally, it coincided with the Sokovia War in November 2000, with bullets flying wildly and artillery fire shaking the sky. Fortunately, he can randomly load protagonist templates, such as Goku in Dragon Ball, Harry Potter in Harry Potter, Naruto in Hokage, Luffy in Pirates, Ichigo Kurosaki in Death, Starry in Saints, Diga in Diga, Simon in Tendon Breakthrough. There are already books on Marvel's Hogwarts wizards and people marrying the Scarlet Witch at the beginning of Marvel, with guaranteed quality updates. P.S. The loaded protagonist template can only be used for 1 hour a day, but once used, you can obtain the corresponding bloodline and memory of the protagonist template. You can gradually cultivate and become stronger, even if you don't have a golden finger in the future, it will not become weaker. About settings. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 1. This book is mainly set in Marvel Cinematic World, supplemented by comics. 2. The loading time for each protagonist template on Golden Finger is 1 hour, and it can only be loaded once a day. Moreover, when loading the protagonist template, personality will definitely be affected, similar to asking for help. However, once loaded, you can obtain the protagonist's bloodline and memory. For example, the first Dragon Ball Goku template, after using it once, the protagonist can obtain all the memories of the Saiyan bloodline in Goku. In this way, even without using the system, one can become stronger through self-cultivation. One day, without the system, one's strength will not decrease. As for the impact of loading different protagonist templates on personality, this is to make the protagonist understand that using templates comes at a cost. Do not rely on templates. After obtaining bloodlines and memories, you need to spend more energy on improving your own physical strength. Otherwise, if there are no side effects and no time limit after loading the protagonist template, there is no need to practice on your own. You just need to rely on the template. One day when the system suddenly disappears, the protagonist will still be an ordinary person. 3. Regarding the issue of the first Saiyan having a strong bloodline. The bloodline of the Saiyan people is indeed strong, and it is also the main development bloodline of the protagonist in the future, but the weaknesses of the Saiyan people are also very obvious. Although the combat power may explode, one will die from heart disease, without air, exposed to the universe, without food, water, and for a long time, they will also die. They also have little resistance to mental control. And these weaknesses can be compensated for through other bloodlines and abilities. 4. Will having too many bloodlines turn the protagonist into a monster? No, not really. Basically, the protagonist templates are all human protagonists, and there won't be too many external features. Even if there are, with more abilities, it's easy to solve these features. Just like the tail of the Saiyan bloodline, it can also be pulled out and kept just to become Super 4. 5. Power system. The protagonist's bloodline will increase and the effects will also stack, but the power system is actually both physical and mental. Saiyan people are physical beings, and the stronger the body, the stronger the extended chi. A wizard is the spirit, the stronger the magic and magic. After the accumulation of blood vessels, either the body or the spirit will be added, which will not be too complicated. The interaction between the body and the spirit will also cause wonderful changes. For example, on the night of the full moon of the Saiyan bloodline, the incarnation of the giant ape loses its rationality. After obtaining the wizard bloodline stack, due to its strong spirit, it can restore its rationality. Chapter 1. Loading the Dragon Ball Wukong template. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's so noisy. Who the hell set off a firefight early in the morning? Beep 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 beep. Hawking, who was sleeping soundly, was suddenly awakened by a deafening sound and couldn't help but roar as he opened his eyes. As a 996 worker, it is rare to have a day off to sleep in, but the grudges of waking up from the noise can be terrifying. After a series of exports of national treasures, he suddenly became stunned. Where is this? Glancing at the surroundings, Hokage felt lost. This European-style retro and somewhat small and luxurious large room clearly does not match his cheap old and dilapidated rental house. Rubbing his eyes to make sure he wasn't feeling dizzy, he couldn't help but want to open the blanket and go down to check. But when he saw his hands and body, he let out an incredulous scream on his face. What's wrong with my body? He realized that his body had suddenly shrunk a lot, as if it had become a child. Crawling down from the bed, Hokage rushed to the mirror that stood up in the room and looked at the little boy who was about 11 or 12 years old inside. He couldn't help but murmur. Is it? Was I reborn into my childhood? The appearance of the little boy in the mirror is exactly what he looked like when he was 11 or 12 years old, and he can confirm this. But I never lived in such a house when I was a child. I carefully recalled that he had always lived in a boarding school at this age group in my memory. Boom! Just as he was puzzled, a loud noise suddenly came from outside. Who bought the firecracker? It's so loud. First, let go of the doubts in his heart. Hokage came to the window to see the outside environment and then determine where he was. Reaching out and pulling open the curtains, he saw the scene outside the window. His pupils immediately contracted, and then his stomach rolled around, almost spitting out in one gulp. What did he see? Broken buildings, blood-stained earth, fallen corpses, airplanes hovering in the sky, and gunfire raging below. It was obvious that what he had just heard was not some artillery battle, but a real shell explosion, and even missile ground washing, where a brutal war was taking place. Danger, extremely dangerous. Escape, hurry up. This was Hokage's first reaction in his heart, and as soon as his body moved, he forced himself to calm down. Because he realized that he had nowhere to escape. Is it really safe to leave this house in such a dangerous war? Maybe if you're out of luck, you'll be beaten into a sieve. It's safer to stay in this room. But looking at the collapsed buildings outside the window, it seems like staying in this room is also a gamble. If a missile hits here, he will be shattered with this house. Perhaps I should find a place like an air raid shelter to hide, but I don't even know where the hell this is. At this moment, Hokage fell into a dilemma. After all, he is just an ordinary person, especially now that he has become a child. It is simply a fantasy to safely find an air raid shelter in this unfamiliar place. Pop it. Just as Hokage was at a loss, a virtual panel suddenly popped out in front of him, and then a line of words appeared on the panel. The Protagonist template random extraction device has started. You have a free extraction opportunity. Do you choose to extract it? Watching the incredible scene before him, Hokage hardly hesitated much and immediately pressed the extraction button displayed on the panel. Nowadays, it's not that I'm struggling with why I woke up in a city full of war, and why I turned into a child and even had such a strange virtual panel emerge. What he needs to do now is to survive first. As the confirm button was pressed, the virtual panel immediately began to flash rapidly like a bar light bulb. After a moment, the panel returned to normal and a new line of text appeared on it. The extraction has ended. The Protagonist template extracted this time is Sun Wukong, 13 years old in the 7 Dragon Ball world. Do you want to load it? Help. Seeing that the randomly selected Protagonist template was Wukong from the Dragon Ball world, Hokage's whole body was instantly refreshed and without hesitation, he clicked confirm again. If he remembers correctly, 13-year-old Wukong should have received training from Turtle Immortal and participated in the world's top martial arts meeting once. It is difficult for ordinary hot weapons to harm him again. 13-year-old Sun Wukong template loading, with a loading time of 1 hour and a cooling time of 24 hours. As a new line of prompts flashed on the panel, Hokage immediately felt a strange change in his body, as if his original body was an ant, but now it has become an elephant. At the same time, a series of memories emerged in his mind, which were all the memories of Sun Wukong from birth to the age of 13. Turning his head to look in the mirror again, his height and face remained unchanged, still the same as when he was 11 or 12 years old. However, his originally small flat head has now grown into long, erect black hair, just like the hairstyle of Sun Wukong in the Dragon Ball. And the pajamas on his body were also replaced by the Turtle Immortal martial arts costume with the character, Turtle, written on it, and he was carrying a red stick behind him. There's only 1 hour left, find a safe place to hide first. According to the introduction on the panel, he can only maintain this state for 1 hour now, and after 1 hour, he will be returned to his original form. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. So now it's not about trying to brag and stop the war in the city, but rather finding a safe place to hide and wait for the war to end or for the loaded protagonist template to cool down. With the decision made, the body immediately rushed out of the room at a speed that exceeded the normal human limit. No one. Taking a glance, he found that the house was empty, so he quickly arrived on the street without stopping. Roughly finding a direction with less gunfire, Hokage began to run wildly all the way. He thinks that with his current body, he should be able to rush out of this city in an hour, and there is no need to waste time looking for so-called air raid shelters. However, just as he didn't run far, he suddenly saw 2 strong soldiers in different colored military uniforms in front of him, holding long guns with empty bullets in close combat on the street. Under normal circumstances, based on his personality, he would definitely run as far as possible to see this situation. In such a dangerous situation like now, not to mention watching 2 soldiers engage in hand-to-hand combat, he wouldn't stop to rescue even if he saw soldiers shooting civilians. While ensuring his own safety, he doesn't mind reaching out to help, but now his protagonist template can only be loaded for up to an hour, so he must prioritize his own safety. However, for some unknown reason, seeing the 2 of them fighting fiercely there, his blood immediately boiled and his body involuntarily turned and rushed towards him. Are you guys in a martial arts competition? Add me. 5 seconds later, watching the 2 strong soldiers knocked unconscious by himself, Hokage was speechless. Is this similar to Mao Shan Taoist's request for a divine upper body? Not only did it bring in the protagonist's strength, but it also added a little bit to the protagonist's personality. Chapter 2. What? You are Wanda. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Let go of that girl. No killing allowed. Eat me a stick. Since knocking out those 2 soldiers, Hokage has hardly been idle all the way. Whenever there is someone doing evil, or someone in danger, he always involuntarily wants to come forward and help, even if his reason has told him it is not possible, but his body cannot resist it. He can already be very certain that this must be influenced by the loading of the protagonist template. He knows himself very well and is definitely not someone who is so righteous and enjoys fighting. It can only be said that after loading the protagonist template, there are both advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is that he can instantly possess the same powerful strength as the loading protagonist, but the disadvantage is that during this period, he will be influenced by the loading protagonist's personality and habits. It's fast. In order to prevent further delays, he tried to choose remote roads and reduce the number of incidents he encountered. Finally, he ran out of the center of the city's most densely populated war zone and gradually arrived at the edge of the city. Of course, there is not much time left for his 1-hour protagonist template. No, come again. Just as Hokage was speeding on the rooftop and about to break out of the city, a micro-missile suddenly appeared from high altitude and shot towards a 2-story residential building not far from him. Crucially, he could clearly see a couple in the second-floor room of the civilian house with frightened expressions on their faces. I'm sorry, you're the first one to board. Hokage pulled out the Rui golden hoop from behind, jumped towards the 2-story residential building, ordered the golden hoop to quickly lengthen, and then shot the missile that was about to hit the residential building away with one strike. And he also landed on the second-floor balcony of the house. Oh, God! The middle-aged couple who witnessed Hawking's stick-chopping micro-missiles throughout the journey couldn't help but exclaim in amazement as they looked at Hawking standing on their balcony. Unfortunately, they had not yet calmed down from their desperate emotions, and their faces changed drastically once again. Because unfortunately, a larger missile flew in from another direction. With the volume of the missile, if it hit this civilian house, not only the couple, but also the 2 children in the basement downstairs would probably not be spared. Similarly, Hawking also noticed the missile. If hit by such a large missile, he felt that even son Wukong's body might not be able to withstand it. So he closed his hands and began to gather his energy. Turtle. Pi. Chi. Gong. Turtle Immortal Flow's ultimate move, the Turtle Sex Qigong Wave is launched fiercely, and a powerful energy beam is directed towards the large missile that is flying towards it. Boom! With a loud bang, the missile was directly destroyed by the Turtle Sex Qigong, leaving no residue left. I've finally solved it now. Putting away his hands, Hawking was about to leave and continue his escape from the city when he suddenly felt his body soften, as if he had fallen from heaven into hell. His strength disappeared instantly, and he closed his eyes and fainted on the ground. Done, it's time. Hawking did not expect that after the Protagonist template was loaded, there would still be such side effects. The middle-aged couple, who were shocked by Hawking's one-handed turtle-style Qigong missile strike and almost had their chins falling, saw their lifesaver fainting on the balcony. They quickly stepped forward to pick him up and rushed towards the basement of the house. Drowsy, drowsy. Hawking, who was sore all over, gradually regained some consciousness and his eyelids moved slightly. And a voice rang in his ear, with a caring little girl's voice in his tone. Are you okay? Hello, 3Q, YE3Q. Instinctively singing, Hawking immediately realized something was wrong and quickly opened his eyes. What appeared in front of him were 2 confused children, 1 male and 1 female, both around the age of 10. We can't understand what you're saying. The little girl tilted her head and turned to look at the little boy next to her. Do you understand what he's saying? The little boy also shook his head decisively. The 2 of them have been learning English speaking through watching DVDs with their parents since childhood, but the boy's just answer in front of them confused them. Oh, sorry, it's my problem. May I ask who you are? Where is this? Hawking reacted and turned his head to look at the room, then asked the 2 children in English. As a foreign trade salesperson in my past life, although my salary was not high, my English speaking ability was still very good. His last memory was when he used turtle-style Qigong to bomb missiles, and then the Protagonist's panel finished loading and fainted on the balcony, so he planned to extract some words from the mouths of the 2 children first. My name is Wanda Django Maximoff, you can call me Wanda. My name is Petro Django Maximoff, you can call me Petro. The 2 of them finished introducing themselves and responded in unison. This is my basement. My parents have gone out to buy food. Let's stay here well. Petro, Wanda, still siblings, this. Hawking suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart, and he tentatively asked. Do you know which country this is? Sokovia. Wanda and Pietro exchanged a glance, blinked their eyes, and replied again. The 2 felt that the little brother brought back by their parents yesterday seemed to be not very intelligent, not even knowing the name of their own country. It's really Marvel. I've traveled to the Marvel world. After confirming again, Hawking almost burst into a foul language. Although he is not a veteran Marvel fan, he has watched most of the Marvel movies, including some TV dramas, but has not watched comics. So I also have a good understanding of Marvel world. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net. If 2 children have the same name, it can still be said in the past, but the reality of Sokovia is not that it is a small Eastern European country fictionalized by Marvel. Marvel, this is not a safe world. Not only are there countless universes, but most of them are also unsafe. It's possible that a big event could destroy dozens of universes. Even if it's the movie moderator universe he watched, the chaotic crisis is not small. Let's work hard to survive. After some contemplation, Hawking couldn't help but sigh. In fact, if it weren't for Marvel being too unsafe, he wouldn't be too resistant to things like traveling through time. Anyway, in his previous life, his parents divorced very early and formed a family with children. He has always been an optional presence between the two families and has long lost any emotional connection. Living in which world is not life? I didn't expect to save the parents of the Scarlet Witch at the beginning, which is not a loss. Looking up at little Wanda wearing a red coat, Hawking felt a hint of comfort in his heart. This future is a multiverse-level existence, with a secure super thigh. If you hold on to it, as long as your mind is more agile, at least safety will be guaranteed. The premise is that Wanda cannot be blacked out. However, since he saved Wanda's parents, the gears of fate will rotate accordingly. Wanda will definitely have a happy childhood, and the possibility of blackening will be greatly reduced. What we need to consider now is how to survive in this world. His current body is only 11 or 12 years old, and he has no identity yet. Although his golden fingers are strong, they can only be used normally for 1 hour, and the side effects are not small. After communicating with 2 innocent children, Hawking gradually had an idea in his mind. Chapter 3. The Adopted Hawking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Approaching noon, Wanda's parents Oleg and Elena returned to the basement of the room holding a few long loaves of bread. You're awake. When they saw Hawking soberly chatting with the 2 children, they immediately showed a surprised expression. If it weren't for Hawking's intervention in intercepting the missile, they and the 2 children would have been corpses by now. So in their hearts, they were full of gratitude towards Hawking. Thank you for saving me. Before the 2 of them could express their gratitude to Hawking, Hawking pretended to be grateful and took the step to speak. I may have hit my head, so I don't remember anything. I heard from Wanda that you saved me and brought me back. Thank you so much. The amnesia method is activated. Sure enough, upon hearing Hawking's words, the couple was momentarily taken aback and then replied with a sympathetic expression on their faces. It's okay, the war ended last night and the government is organizing rescue efforts and restoring urban construction. You stay here for now, and once order is restored, we will help you find your family. At this moment, the couple had already begun to recall Hawking's background in their minds. Hawking may have been a descendant of a Chinese immigrant in Sokovia, but the arrival of war caused him and his family to disperse, and he suffered some kind of injury and lost his memory. As for the special abilities he has shown, it can also be understood. Previously, news was still reporting about mutants. Perhaps he is a mutant with special abilities. Just like their daughter sometimes allows small things to float, their son runs much faster than a normal child. The little boy in front of them saved the lives of their family, so they naturally need to take good care of him and do their best to help him find his parents. Will this be too troublesome for you? Hawking pretended to be a bit embarrassed and said. With the help of Wanda's parents, who are locals, he can temporarily settle down for a period of time and then work hard to improve his strength. During the period of just waking up, he not only extracted a lot of information from Wanda and Pietro's mouths, but also spent time specifically studying his own golden finger. So far, he can clearly feel that after using the Protagonist template to load once, although the Protagonist template has been scattered now, some things have been left behind. The most obvious thing is memory. Sun Wukong's 13 years of memory did not disappear with the end of loading the template, but remained entirely in his mind. Of course, it's just memory, without emotions or anything like that, just like having an extra 13-year-long movie in my mind. Secondly, he could clearly feel that his body had undergone some special change, and he speculated that it might be Sun Wukong's Saya human body mass left in his body. The most direct evidence is that he actually grew a tail behind his butt. So even if he doesn't use the Protagonist template later on, he can still follow the training method of Coincidentally in his memory to gradually improve his strength. Moreover, 13-year-old son Wukong is just the first template. As long as he works hard to accumulate justice points according to the panel, he can continue to obtain other protagonist templates, obtain the physique and memory of those protagonists. As for how to accumulate justice values, there is also a very detailed introduction on the panel. That is to do just things. Every just thing can accumulate a certain amount of justice value according to the size of the matter. When the justice value accumulates to a certain extent, different protagonist templates can be randomly selected. Extracting the protagonist template will permanently obtain it, as long as each loading ends and waiting for 24 hours for the cooling to end, it can continue to be used. Previously, during the hour when he loaded Sun Wukong, he also did many righteous things, all of which were settled with righteous values. As for what kind of thing is considered a just thing, according to the explanation on the panel, as long as it is subjectively determined to be just in his heart, it is a just thing. For example, he believes that killing an evil person can save a group of people, and that killing is also a just thing. He believes that if the president commits a crime, killing him is just, and killing him has justice value. Even if everyone in the world says he is wrong, as long as he thinks he is just in his heart, it is just. But if he kills this person just because he unilaterally hates them, then there will be no justice value in the account. And this kind of just thing must be done by him himself, not with money, but with practical experience. Just like how he donates money to charity foundations and beggars, these are not considered just things, but if he helps an elderly person who falls, it can be considered just things. The premise is that the old man cannot mislead him, otherwise only beating the old man can be considered a just thing. And what he feels very satisfied with is that his justice value will always only increase and not decrease. He can accumulate justice value by doing just things, but he will not decrease justice value by doing evil things. Of course, although he may not be very just, he also has his own bottom line and will not do anything too evil. No, it's not troublesome. You're really a sensible child. Upon hearing that Hokage was so sensible at a young age and spoke so politely, Elena, as a mother, suddenly felt a surge of maternal love and came forward to embrace Hokage, who was still somewhat weak. "Mom, I want it too." At this moment, Petro became somewhat unwilling and immediately jumped onto the bed to join in. Wanda's sister, who was born 12 minutes later that night, couldn't fall behind and hugged her brother closely. Father Oleg put down the bread in his hand and hugged his wife Elena, children Wanda and Pietro, as well as Hokage in the middle. "Don't worry, everything will be okay." Hokage, who was held in the middle, trembled slightly in his heart. He felt the warmth between his family for the first time, which made him both unfamiliar and somewhat enjoyable. The feeling of being close and loving in a family is like this. In his past life, from the moment he had memories, all he heard were the endless arguments of his parents, as if they were not lovers, but enemies. He didn't understand why he had to choose to be together and give birth to him since he wasn't in love. Later on, when his parents divorced, he became a burden, kicking back and forth on both sides like a football. When his parents formed a new family and had children, he became even less popular. So after work, he never contacted his parents again. A week later, Sokovia gradually returned to normal order because too many people had died in the city and there was a lack of a large amount of labor. Oleg and Elena both found decent jobs. On that day, as usual, they brought Hokage to a special agency for handling missing persons. "I'm very sorry, due to the damn war, the city information is missing, and we can't find the information that matches him. Moreover, there are no features in the information registered to search for the missing family that match him. So his parents and family should have unfortunately died in this war. You can choose to send him to an orphanage or adopt him," the chubby female staff member explained in a very regretful tone to Oleg and Elena in the room. After a moment, Elena and Oleg, whose eyes were slightly red, walked out of the room and came to Hokage, who was playing with Wanda and Petro. They slowly squatted down and asked in a gentle tone. "Little Hokage, are you willing to be our child, the brother of Wanda and Pietro?" Hawking looked at Oleg, then at Elena, and smiled slightly. I am willing. I have a brother. I have a brother. Before Elena and Oleg could speak, Wanda and Petro had already cheered. After spending a week together, they all really liked this brother who was very good at taking care of them. Chapter 4 was originally the 838 universe. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. 2 months later, in the basement. 287, 288, 289. 300, Hawking, wearing a small vest, gritted his teeth and did the 300th push-up before struggling to get up and sitting on the ground. Undoubtedly, it is the body of a scion, and it is indeed very durable. His current body is about 11 or 12 years old, and under normal circumstances, he has not yet entered junior high school. If he had trained according to his methods in the past few days, he would have probably been exhausted. At least muscle dissolution is definitely indispensable. But every time he trains until he is completely exhausted, as long as he eats and sleeps, the next day he is immediately full of energy and his body fully recovers. And you can clearly feel that your body is getting stronger every day. In just 2 months, his strength is no less than that of an average adult male. Until now, he has finally experienced the joy of fitness enthusiasts who are obsessed with exercise, which is actually like upgrading games, with a great sense of achievement. When a person discovers that they are making progress every day, they truly become addicted. The economy is still a bit weak now. Sokovia is currently undergoing reconstruction, and Oleg and Elena have also found good jobs. Normally, raising 3 children is not a big problem, but the physique of the Scion people is too good to eat. If Hawking really indulges in eating, then relying solely on Oleg and Elena's salary will not be enough for him to eat alone. You should know that in the world's top martial arts club, the Turtle Immortal received a prize of 500,000 yuan for the first place and was eaten by Wukong for 480,000 yuan. This is why his current training intensity has not yet reached its maximum. He was thinking about whether or not to let the Wukong template be used. With Wukong's strength, it's not a problem to go out and do some extra work to earn some black money. Nowadays, the security in Sokovia is not so good. They eat black and steal some money, while also accumulating some justice value. But after careful consideration, he ultimately rejected the idea. Because he suddenly remembered that there seemed to be a Hydra's lair in Sokovia, and its leader Baron Struck loved to study people with special abilities. If you are caught making a bold move, it will not only be your own danger, but also bring danger to the Wanda family. If he could maintain Wukong's state all the time, he wouldn't be afraid. He could go alone and destroy a Hydra base. After all, the strength of a Hydra base may not necessarily be as strong as the Red Ribbon Legion. But he can only maintain his Wukong form for an hour, and after the end, he will still feel weak all over. Although this side effect has become smaller and smaller with the enhancement of his own strength, it is still very dangerous. The most important point, which is also a headache for him, is that after transforming into Wukong, his personality has been affected to a certain extent, and he cannot handle problems rationally like he does now. He is too kind, too righteous, and too fond of fighting. So he felt that he shouldn't be in a hurry. It's only 2,000 years now, and there are still 10 years before Iron Man appears. For a while, at least wait until your own strength is almost there before starting to consider making money and seeking justice. After resting for a while, Hawking extended his hidden tail from his waist and rolled up a chair to continue his tail training. The tail is a weakness of the Scion people, and once held, they will instantly lose all their strength, so it is natural to spend more time exercising in advance. Hawking, come out quickly. The moon is so round today. Let's go to the balcony on the 2nd floor to see the moon. Just as he was working hard to train his tail, Wanda and Petro poked a small head out of the crack in the door and waved excitedly towards him. Hawking froze at the words, then turned around and smiled. You see, I don't like watching the moon. Just kidding, he has the same scion bloodline as son Wukong flowing through his body now. If he goes out to see the full moon, the whole Sokovia will be lively. It is estimated that the next day there will be a big news in the whole world, King Kong causing a commotion in Sokovia. Then major organizations around the world will send people to trouble him. Normally, there are 12 full moons in a year. From now on, he should pay attention to avoiding each full moon until he can control his transformation or maintain his rationality after transformation. Okay. Upon hearing Hawking's answer, Wanda and Pietro immediately showed a disappointed expression on their faces. In their eyes, Hawking is a very mature and stable big brother who is very good at taking care of them, so they always want to pull Hawking along with everything. In addition, parents have to work very late every day, and they are also very bored. So, after you finish watching the moon, go to the kitchen on the first floor and I'll give you some noodles to eat. Watching Wanda and Pietro looking disappointed, Hawking smiled and comforted them. The special family environment in his past life allowed him to learn to live independently at an early age, and he naturally knew how to cook. Although not as good as any famous chefs, ordinary home-cooked dishes are not a problem. He has been eating without doing anything at home, and he is also very embarrassed. Now, he basically covers all 3 meals a day and household chores, so it's like exercising. In fact, this also corresponds to the cultivation philosophy of Xianliu, where life and labor are cultivation. Foreigners have different tastes from Chinese people, but it's okay, he can make appropriate adjustments. Wanda and Pietro love to eat the tomato and egg noodles he makes, which are too sweet and too sweet. And those Western dishes, to be honest, learning them now doesn't have much difficulty. Oh, that's great. As soon as the 2 little ones heard that there was noodles to eat, their faces were filled with disappointment, and they immediately happily applauded and nodded. In their eyes, Brother Hawking is simply amazing. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net can cook various delicious foods, understand a lot of knowledge, tell them various unheard of stories, and always protect them like adults. Hawking, this is the comic my dad gave me before. I have already finished reading it. I'll lend you a look. Before leaving with his sister Wanda, Pietro suddenly thought of something and handed a comic book in his hand to Hawking as an invitation. Thank you. Hawking rubbed the head of Pietro, who was half a head shorter than himself, and took the comic with ease. Although he is not very interested in comics, it is the child's intention. Refusing it will make the child sad. And mine, this is my favorite disc to watch the most. I'll give it to you. Wanda, unwilling to be outdone, handed over a disc, which was the first season of her favorite sitcom, Dick Van Dyke Show. Thank you too. Hawking also rubbed little Wanda's head. After the 2 of them left, he set aside the comics and discs, ready to wash up and go down to the kitchen on the first floor. However, just as he was getting dressed and preparing to go upstairs, he accidentally caught a glimpse of the cover of the comic book, and his face changed instantly. What's going on? Originally, on the cover of the comic, there was a woman holding a shield and a man with a red skull fighting, with a few words prominently marked next to it. Captain Carter fights against the Red Skull. Captain Carter versus Red Skull, shouldn't it be Captain America versus Red Skull? Picking up the comic and quickly flipping through it, Hawking couldn't help but murmur. Did I travel through the 838 universe? Chapter 5. Professor X's Visit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hawking thought of the 838 universe because he remembered that in the crazy multiverse, Wanda went to the 838 universe, and Captain Steve of the United States became Captain Carter of the United Kingdom. And coincidentally, there are also mutants in that universe. Mutants exist, and this was already told to Oleg and Elena when they adopted him. Wanda can use his mind to control something to hover, and Pietro's running speed far exceeds that of a normal child, while Hawking's previously demonstrated ability is similar to his current tail. In the eyes of the ogres, it is a proper mutant. However, Currently most ordinary people are very afraid of and discriminate against the existence of mutants. Sokovia is even better because all her energy has been spent on internal wars, and everyone's hatred towards mutants is not so strong. It is said that in New York, the locals have a much more severe hatred towards mutants. If the police encounter a mutant and make a slight mistake, they are likely to directly shoot, especially if it is a black mutant. They may immediately empty their magazine. Even some officials have been proposing to pass the previously repealed Mutant Registration Act again, which would record all mutated individuals for easy management and prevention. Due to concerns about the potential danger of exposing the mutant identities of the 3 children, the couple has always warned them not to use their abilities in front of outsiders. Especially when Hokage goes out, he should hide his tail well. If it is exposed, he will say it is a decoration to deceive him. If it's the 838 universe, then little Wanda would be a bit dangerous. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but rub his head. If this is really the 838 universe, it means that shortly after the invasion of the Annihilation, Wanda of the main universe will occupy the body of Wanda of this universe through the method of dreamwalking, and then take down the entire illumination. Well, it's still too early to say whether it's 838 universe or not. Troops for the enemy, Earth for floods. There is always a way. It's useless to think so much now. With his current strength, he can't stop it at all. It's better to wait until more protagonist templates are unlocked in the future and try to solve it again. Shaking his head, shaking away his troubles, Hokage prepared to take a shower and have some noodles. More than 3 weeks later, Hokage woke up at 5 o'clock as usual. After a 10-kilometer run, 300 push-ups in the basement, 500 squats, and 1,000 sit-ups, start preparing for a sumptuous breakfast. Sandwich, milk, noodles, grilled sausages, fried eggs, filled the entire table. Anyway, Wanda and his team can't finish it all. He can keep everything to himself and there won't be any waste. Oleg and Elena woke up to see a table of breakfast and once again marveled at Hokage's young age for being so sensible and proficient in cooking. He was sure to become an excellent chef in the future. On the other side, he silently made up his mind to earn money well, otherwise eating would be a bit stressful. In the eyes of the couple, Hokage, who was sensible, obedient, and precocious like a young adult, had a very unfortunate childhood. The children of the poor take charge early, which is common in any country in the world. They are already living in poverty, but their 2 children Wanda and Pietro are still relatively happy. At least they won't learn to cook and do household chores at this age, and they will try their best to give them a happy childhood. But they can also understand. Because both children are mutants, they often follow news reports related to mutants. Many mutants, after awakening, cannot control their ability to harm their families, and some may undergo significant changes in appearance, appearing very frightening. So when they discover that their children are mutants, not all parents can accept it. They may even be extremely disgusted and afraid of their children, treating them as monsters. Perhaps, Hokage's family was like this before, which was why he matured so early. Thinking about it makes them even more distressed about little Hokage. Wanda, Petro, it's time to get up and have breakfast. With Elena's shout, Wanda and Pietro, the siblings, started fighting and running down the second floor. Today is Sunday. As the family finished breakfast and sat on the sofa in the living room, Oleg began to put in the disc and play the 23rd episode of the 2nd season of Dick Van Dyke Show. During the chaos in Sokovia, Oleg, who had lost his job, relied on selling CDs to make a living for his family. Although there is a formal job nowadays, there are still a large number of CDs left at home. Hokage was also sitting among the family, and he was not very interested in these discs. He just loved and cherished the current atmosphere because he had never had such an experience in his past life. Ding dong. Just as the family was laughing heartily at the sitcom, the doorbell suddenly rang. "I'll go open the door." Hokage stood up voluntarily. Opening the door, a bald old man in a wheelchair and a young man wearing strange sunglasses appeared in front of him. Good morning, child. The bald old man greeted Hawking with a gentle expression on his face. Just as he finished greeting, a surprised expression appeared on his face. Strange, this is the first time this has happened. As a top level for telepathic and mind control mutant, apart from his old friend Magneto wearing a helmet and the former White Queen beside the Black Emperor, there are really few people who can isolate his telepathic abilities. A few days ago, through a brainwave enhancement machine, he discovered a suitable mutant here in Sokovia. Yu reading www.uukangshu.net came here to recruit him to his mutant school. I just didn't expect to encounter a mutant person who could isolate my telepathic senses as soon as I opened the door. It seems that this family is not one mutant person, but two. This second one was not discovered by him due to its ability to isolate telepathy. When external spiritual energy invades the host's brain, automatic blocking is activated to ensure the system's existence is not detected. Looking at the text prompt suddenly popping up on the panel, and then at the shapes of the two people in front of him, Hawking didn't even know that it was the famous Professor X and Laser Eye who had found the door. Fortunately, the panel automatically intercepted Professor X's telepathic energy, otherwise he would have lost all his secrets. Good morning, gentlemen. What can I do for you? Hawking smiled slightly, but there was no special expression on his face. Since the other party is unable to telepathize with him, there is nothing to be afraid of. According to his understanding, Professor X is a mutant who is close to humans and belongs to the camp of justice and kindness. He should not pose any threat to their family. What he is currently thinking in his mind is what the purpose of Professor X's sudden visit is. Anyway, it shouldn't have anything to do with him. He's not a mutant. Is it because of Wanda and Quine? But he remembered that Wanda was not a mutant in the main universe, and his power came from Ciceron's chaotic magic. Fast Silver seemed to have gained superpowers due to his ability to modify reality, which were later further developed by the Mind Wand. However, this is the 838 universe, and many settings may be different again. So he plans to remain calm and observe first before proceeding. Chapter 6. 3 Variants. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I am Professor Charles from Xavier Genius School in New York, and I would like to talk to your parents. Professor X once again showed a gentle smile. At this moment, the voice of his father Oleg's inquiry came from the living room. Hawking, who is it? Two unfamiliar gentlemen, they say they are professors at a New York school. Hawking loudly replied. Oleg and Elena immediately paused the TV upon hearing this and walked over together. At the moment of meeting Oleg and Elena, Professor X activated his telepathic ability and began to read their memories. Every time he comes to recruit students, he will check the memories of his parents as soon as possible. If it's the kind of parents who are afraid and hostile towards mutants, and are not aware that their children are mutants, he will not inform the other party that he is the principal of the mutant school, but will only recruit students under the name of a normal school in New York. For example, a student who was admitted to Boston a few years ago and was able to release the cold air did not inform the other parents of the truth at that time after sensing their attitudes. If a parent already knows that their child is a mutant or does not harbor hatred towards mutants, they will choose to tell the other person the truth. Surprisingly, there are 3, no, I can't be entirely certain. After reading the memories of Oleg and Elena, Professor X's expression once again showed surprise. I thought there was only one mutant child here, but I didn't expect it to be 3, 2 of which are quite special. The little Pietro that can be fully confirmed is the one he sensed through his brainwave enhancement machine. The second Pietro's sister, little Wanda, did not have the unique brain waves of mutants under his induction, but she also has similar ability to control her thoughts, so it is uncertain whether she is actually a mutant. The third child, Hawking, was adopted by this couple over 2 months ago. But it cannot be completely confirmed that it is a mutant. But he is more inclined towards the other person as a mutant, because it fits the characteristics of a mutant very well. Firstly, the little guy has a tail growing behind his buttocks, and many mutants have some animal characteristics. Secondly, under normal circumstances, the little one's body is slightly stronger than that of an ordinary child. After an outbreak, it can actually intercept missiles and emit powerful energy attacks. This is also true of mutants. Some mutants with enormous potential have this characteristic before fully mastering their abilities. Finally, and most importantly, the evidence is that the little guy can passively block his spiritual perception, so he cannot sense the other person's brainwaves, which is very reasonable. In this regard, Wanda is very strange. He can see Wanda's memory. In theory, if it is a mutant, it should emit special brain waves belonging to the mutant, but in fact, it is not. If it weren't for mutants, Wanda's memory had not been altered, experimented with, or had any other special experiences, but rather a natural awakening of mind control. Anyway, regardless of whether he is a mutant or not, he has decided to enroll his 3 children in his own school. Especially Hokage, who possesses multiple abilities and is a very suitable type for combat, has a precocious mind. With good guidance in the future, he is very suitable to join his X-Men. If he goes astray and is abducted by Magneto in the future, it will be another headache for him. That's the thing, we are a school dedicated to protecting and guiding mutant children. In the living room, Professor X gave an overview of his school and the purpose of his trip. After listening, Oleg and Elena also hesitated. According to Professor Charles, his mutant school is indeed the most suitable place for 3 children to attend. They have been worried that their 3 children will be studying in Sokovia in the future, and if their identity as mutants is exposed, they will be at risk. And Professor Charles did give many similar examples. They didn't feel that Professor Charles would deceive them. As for the reason, there was an inexplicable sense of trust in them when they saw this professor. What really makes them hesitate is that the school is in New York, which is completely another country. Going there to study is too far, I can't see you a few times a year, and I really can't bear to part with it. Professor Charles, we. After some consideration, the child's safety issues overcame their inner reluctance, and they ultimately decided to agree to let the 3 children go to New York for school. But as soon as they spoke, they were interrupted by Hokage, who had been listening to both sides talking on the side. Dad and Mom, can I have a private conversation with Professor Charles? Of course. No problem. Oleg and Elena paused for a moment and nodded at the same time. Because Hokage is usually very mature, and the reason why they intercepted missiles to save their family before is that the couple's attitude towards Hokage is different from that of Petro and Wanda, but they truly treat him as a big child. I will also respect his own opinions on any related matters. Professor X was also very interested in Hokage, who had great potential and was unable to telepathize. He wanted to know what he needed to talk to him separately, so he did not refuse. The elderly and the young moved from the living room to the basement in this way. Do you have anything you want to say to me? Professor, you should be aware of the country of Sokovia, which is very insecure. Even though the war has ended and there has been a brief peace, no one knows when the next war will break out. I am very worried that when my younger siblings and I go to your school, my dad and mom will encounter danger. So I hope the professor can help them process immigration and find a suitable job for them in New York. Hokage said seriously to Charles. Going to a mutant school is also a good choice for him now. It is safe to have a lewd development in Sokovia, but his strength is too slow, and it is not really safe, war, Hydra, and the destruction of the entire Sokovia in the future. And the mutant school is not entirely safe, but at least there are X-Men standing up, and he doesn't quite agree with Professor X's philosophy. In other words, he thinks it's too idealistic. But it's not bad for such a person to be a teammate, at least he won't sacrifice you for his own interests. Professor X still likes PUA people, but is he the kind of person who will be PUA? If it's beneficial for him, then push the boat with the flow. If it's not beneficial, then find a reason to push it away. Anyway, Professor X can't read his mind. It's better than Magneto. From the perspective of the overall mutant, Magneto is right. He is completely on the side of the mutant and can even be ruthless enough to kill all non-mutant people. But as a teammate of Magneto, he may sacrifice you for the benefit of the overall mutant at some point. The demonic woman is so loyal and has such a good relationship, but she doesn't show any mercy when it's time to kill. And not to mention Hawking, besides, he is not a mutant yet. Ogly, Elena, and little Wanda are not mutants, only little Pietro is a mutant. In terms of stance, he is in line with Professor X. We don't want either mutant or human to be completely destroyed. Chapter 7. Xavier Genius School. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hawking now values the resources of the mutant school, which can greatly accelerate the improvement of his strength. He can eat until he is full and exercise to the maximum extent possible, without worrying about abnormal behavior attracting the attention of normal people. He can engage in battles with experts from the mutant school, unleashing the potential of the Scion bloodline. He can also utilize the advanced technology and abilities of the mutant school to more efficiently practice the turtle immortal flow. If in Sokovia, at the current pace of development, it may take him 10 years to truly match the full strength of 13-year-old Goku, and it may take him 2 to 3 years to go to a mutant school. Maybe he can even grab some justice points if he's in a good hurry, but that's the foundation of his strength. In short, he believes that strength is the king's way, and only when his own strength becomes stronger as soon as possible can he cope with everything. However, if possible, he still wants to take over Oleg and Elena who adopted him. For ordinary people, Sokovia, which occasionally experiences wars, is too dangerous. Hawking, you are very kind and mature. You should also understand that if every student makes such a request, it will be a great burden for our mutant school. Professor X looked at Hawking with admiration and satisfaction on his face. Risking his life to activate his abilities to save a stranger couple, he eventually fainted due to excessive use of his abilities. Now, when he has the opportunity to attend a mutant school in New York, he still remembers the safety of his foster parents. This is obviously a child with a very kind heart. As for amnesia, he is not as easy to deceive as the Oleg couple. It is obvious that amnesia is a facade, and this child should have had a not-so-good experience. Otherwise, they wouldn't mature so early and show a desire and appreciation for family affection. For him, this is actually a bonus point, and being able to maintain kindness even when life was not very good in his early years is truly kindness. Combined with his demonstrated combat talent and abilities, he was actually willing to agree to Hawking's request. Because that doesn't mean much to him. If you just agree so easily, it's obviously not good for a child. If it's too easy to get something, they won't cherish it. I know, so I'm not giving nothing. According to what you said, the original intention of the establishment of the mutant school was to guide mutants in learning to use their abilities and protect them from persecution. So the school definitely needs some mutants to play the role of protectors. If you let our siblings go to school for free and help my parents immigrate to New York to settle, then I am willing to play the role of protector. Hawking looked at Professor X with confidence in his tone. Professor X appreciated it even more upon hearing this. It's great to have such judgment and courage at this age. Okay, I agree to your request, but it's not that easy to become a protector. You'll need to wait a few more years until you reach adulthood and pass the assessment to qualify. Professor, you won't regret today's decision. Hawking's face suddenly showed a brilliant smile. He is not sure if Professor X will agree, and if not, he will have to go to the mutant school to improve his skills first, and then find a way to help the Orig couple move to a safe city. Ha ha ha, I think so too. Professor X blinked and replied in a joking tone. After the two of them left the room, Professor X proposed to the Oleg couple that they were willing to help them immigrate to New York and find suitable jobs to settle near the school. For such a good thing, the couple naturally has no reason to refuse. In a chaotic country like Sokovia during a war, it is basically difficult for ordinary people, especially those who want to move to New York, except for the wealthy and highly skilled talents. If one can live safely in New York, who would be willing to stay in a place where they don't know which day they will be bombed? Sokovia is not an invasion by foreign enemies, but a war triggered by civil war and internal conflicts within the nation. Only politicians and ambitious individuals want to fight for power and gain, because they and their families don't have to go to the battlefield. After going to New York, not only can we live a peaceful life, but we are also much closer to where our children go to school. If normal people make such promises to them, they will definitely not believe it at all. There is no such thing as pie falling from the sky. But Professor Charles's words seemed to have a magical power that made them believe without any doubt after listening. So, after simple preparation and handling, the family of 5 followed Professor X out of the chaotic country of Sokovia and embarked on a journey of moving to New York. The war caused Oleg and Elena to lose all their relatives and friends, so they didn't have much concern. The Bronx district in northern New York. Your parents, I have arranged to work at a company in the city, and I will take you to move into the school next. Don't be afraid, there are many children like you in school, and you will also make many friends on the speeding car. Professor X, sitting in the co-pilot seat, looked at Hawking leaning against him from behind, clearly feeling a bit timid as he entered a new environment. Petro and Wanda comforted him gently. And Hawking also hugged his younger siblings, patting their backs while replying to Professor X. Thank you, Professor. The company that Professor X arranged for Oleg and Elena to work for is really well paid in all aspects. UU reading www.uukangshu.net is suitable for both of their abilities, and it is obvious that they have put in a lot of effort. He still has this in mind. Professor X is truly kind or hypocritical, he doesn't know. He only looks at what the other person has done, not what they think. Even if it is hypocrisy or exploitation, as long as the other party pays, they are willing to repay in the future. The car drove for about 45 minutes from the Bronx to the suburbs of Westchester County, and a very large estate-style school appeared in front of Hawking. Professor X, you really have money. Xavier Genius Youth School is actually a transformation of Professor X's family mansion, and Professor X himself is a super-rich second generation. Many high-tech equipment in the school, including a stealth plane, were built at the expense of Professor X. The car drove directly into the school and stopped in front of the teaching building, which looked like a castle. Professor, you're back. Something happened and we need you to decide. As they entered the castle, a group of students, big and small, rushed out of the classroom just as class was over. Many of them had unusual appearances, and they would stop respectfully to greet Professor X. At this moment, a slender female teacher with white hair who had just emerged from the classroom also noticed Professor X. I already know, go call all the teachers to my office. This is Professor Aurora, your future math and physics teacher, who will also guide you on how to more effectively control your abilities. After hearing the words of the white-haired female teacher, Professor X immediately used his telepathic ability to understand the truth of the matter. After giving an order, he introduced himself to the Hawking siblings. Chapter 8. Hawking, the Supernatural Eater. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Aurora saw Hawking and the three of them, and her expression immediately became gentle. She smiled and raised her hand to say hello. Welcome to Xavier Genius School, I believe you will definitely love it here. After greeting, she followed Professor X's instructions and went to gather with other teachers. Hawking also identified the identity of this female teacher through her name and characteristics. Stormwind Woman, capable of controlling the weather in a small area, summoning top-level third-level mutants for lightning, storm, and ice and snow attacks. There are 5 levels of mutants, with level 1 being the lowest and level 5 being the highest. Under normal circumstances, the level of mutants is naturally determined, but most of them cannot fully control their abilities at the beginning, and their displayed power is not as strong as their own level, requiring gradual development. For example, a second-level mutant, whose pinnacle is second level, and a third-level mutant may only demonstrate second-level power, but after training and development, they can eventually grow to third level. However, low-level mutants may not necessarily be unable to defeat high-level mutants. This needs to be considered from various aspects such as the ability direction, mentality, and personal combat experience of the mutant. Just like an auxiliary level 3 mutant, not necessarily able to defeat an attacking level 2 mutant, a level 3 ordinary office worker with similar abilities, not necessarily able to defeat a level 2 battlefield veteran. Pyatt, could you please take 3 little guys to find a room to live in and familiarize them with the school? Upon seeing Aurora leave, Professor X called a young man of 17 or 18 years old and handed over the 3 of Hokage to him. The school building has a total of 7 floors, and except for some rooms that have been converted into classrooms and special purposes, all other rooms can be used to accommodate people. Because it is a mutant school that enrolls young mutants, there are not many students in the entire school, including only 34 professors. Even with a luxurious 1 room per person, there are still many vacant rooms. Normal mutants who graduate from school can freely choose to enter society, stay in school as teachers, or join the X.Men. Professor X has told them all about these on the road. Pyatt, what are your abilities? While Pyatt, who appeared to have a good temper, took them on a tour and selected rooms, Hokage also took the opportunity to chat and wanted to learn more about the mutant school. He has watched the mutant series of movies, but that was a long time ago. I still remember the general plot and character nicknames, but I have forgotten many detailed things. For example, the female teacher just now, Storm Girl, knew she was called Storm Girl, but as for the name Aurora, he didn't remember much. Of course, he must know about famous figures such as Magneto, Professor X, Wolverine, and Phoenix. I can transform my body into a constitution similar to steel, possessing stronger physique, strength, and defense abilities. Pyatt smiled and activated his abilities, and his entire body immediately turned into a color similar to steel. Oh, this is really cool. Little Pietro's eyes lit up and he couldn't help but touch it. Little Wanda, who was holding Hawking's arm next to him, also looked curious and poked his head. Actually, my dream is to become an artist like Picasso, and when I have time, I can paint a portrait for you. For little Pietro's mastery, Pyatt didn't mind either and said with a smile. It turned out to be a steel warrior. Hawking looked up and down at Pyatt and stayed in the middle for 2 seconds. The toughest man among mutants. Just choose these 3 rooms, they happen to be connected together. After confirming the room, putting down their luggage and roughly organizing it, the 3 of them strolled around the school under the guidance of Ganglishi. Classrooms, laboratories, canteens, gardens, swimming pools, basketball courts, football fields, and even horses and racetracks, making Hawking constantly marvel at how rich the school is. And just as Ganglishi was strolling around the school with 3 new students from Hawking, the school principal's office also held an emergency meeting. My idea about this mutant attack on the president must have been instigated by Magneto. Scott, the laser eye, affirmed. And the Cheen with red hair next to him shook its head. Scott, I don't think so. Although Eric has the ability to manipulate everything in prison, it is not reasonable. Because this will only harm his plan for mutant prosperity. Professor X clearly shares the same viewpoint as Cheen. The Storm Girl over there raised her hand. Now that's great, those government guys are going to move out of the last mutant registration bill again. To know what's going on, or to find the mutant who attacked the president. Cheen and Aurora, go and bring him back. Scott and I went to prison to talk to Eric. After some discussion, Professor X made a decision. In the evening, at the school restaurant. Can the food here be eaten casually? Hawking looked at the students queuing up to eat, and his eyes began to light up. Ganglishi smiled and nodded. Of course, all the food, drinks, and daily necessities in school are free, and you can eat as much as you want. At this moment, he had not yet realized the seriousness of the matter. Let's go queue up. Don't worry, take Pietro and Wanda to the queue to eat first. I'll wait for everyone to finish before eating. Hokage waved his hand. No need to do this, the food in the cafeteria is well managed, and our chef, Mr. Yug, has the ability to quickly process all ingredients into food. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.net, and he always purchases enough ingredients for the entire school to eat for 3 days, so there won't be a shortage of food. Ganglishi knew that Hokage and his companions came from the war-torn Sokovia and thought it was because there was a shortage of food there that they were doing this. The entire mutant school, in addition to professors and students, has many staff members. These staff members are all mutants and students who graduated from the school before. Because most abilities are auxiliary types, with upper limits of level 1 or 2, they have little combat power. After graduation, they cannot integrate well into ordinary people in the outside world, so they choose to stay in school and work. A chef who cooks, a gardener who trims flowers and plants, an ant who cleans and organizes the room, a repairman who repairs various equipment, and so on. Anyway, Professor X is not short of money and his treatment is very good. You don't know, Hokage is a particularly edible big bad wolf. He can eat a lot of things in one meal. At this moment, Xiaowangda reached out and gestured. Upon seeing this, Hokage gasped and began to scratch her belly. Dare to say I'm a big bad wolf, then you're Little Red Riding Hood. Be careful not to let the big bad wolf eat Little Red Riding Hood in one bite. Xiao Wang chuckled in a moment. The little Pietro next to him also strongly agrees with his sister's viewpoint, and Xiaomian earnestly explains to Ganglishi. I'll tell you, Hokage has a universe in his belly, and I've never seen him eat enough before. Perhaps this is his mutant ability. It's really pitiful. Come on, it's okay, just let go and eat. Upon hearing that Hokage had never had enough to eat, the kind-hearted Iron Man felt sympathy again and immediately led the 3 of them to line up. Chapter 9. Exercise of Chi. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. This is too delicious. Ganglishi looked at Hokage, who had already stood up for the 30th time to eat, and his fork remained in mid-air for a long time. In his view, every time Hokage went to the queue to get enough food, it was enough for an adult man to eat, and Hokage had already eaten 30 servings and had just stood up and said he was only 5% full. Hokage has a lot of strength, even bigger than his father. I have long suspected that his ability is actually super edible, that's why he has a lot of strength. Looking at the stunned Iron Man, little Pietro said with some pride. Ganglishi smiled and shook his head. Okay, Mr. Yug will be very busy today. As Ganglishi said, the chubby chef over there, Yug, saw Hokage reappear in front of him and couldn't help but cover his forehead. Kid, do you know? You've been eating school food for a whole day now. There are only a few dozen people in the school, many of whom are children who don't eat much at a meal, while many women among adults have the habit of losing weight and maintaining their figure. So the 30 servings of food that Hokage ate were indeed fast enough to cover the daily food intake at school. That's not because the food you make is too delicious, sir. By the way, sir, is your ability in mind control? Hokage watched as various ingredients behind Yug were automatically cleaned, cut, and cooked. The spoons in front of him were also unmanned, so he automatically cooked there. He asked curiously. Upon hearing Hokage praise the deliciousness of his food, Yug's face immediately changed a lot. It's mind control, but it's incomparable to Professor Chin. My ability has been developed to the limit, and I can only control things weighing a few pounds. Thank you, I'll probably have about 30 more to eat before I can get enough, thank you, sir. Hokage took the plate that had already been filled with food and before leaving, he kindly reminded Yug, causing his head to instantly expand. There's no way, he came to the mutant school just to be able to eat enough, of course it's impossible to be polite. The abilities of mutants are not completely different, for example, telepathy. There are many mutants who have it, but some may reach the level of Professor X but have almost none. Similarly, in terms of mind control, as a first-level mutant, Yug's development to the extreme is only about controlling kitchen utensils to assist in cooking. And the fifth-level mutant Renchin, even in childhood, can easily levitate a car on a street. It seems that we will be going on a big procurement tomorrow morning. Yug calculated that the remaining ingredients in the kitchen were probably enough for Hawking to eat alone. Half an hour later, when all the students in the cafeteria had finished walking, Hawking finally had enough to eat. This was the first time he had eaten a very full meal during his time traveling. Do professors usually not eat with us? On the way from the cafeteria to the room, Hawking casually asked. During the entire meal, none of the school professors, including Professor X, Storm Girl, and Laser Eye, were present. Thinking back to the solemn scene of the Goddess of Storm when he entered school in the afternoon, he felt a hint of unease in his heart. We usually eat in the cafeteria, but I really didn't see it today. Ganglishi's face also showed a puzzled expression. Upon hearing this sentence, Hawking's body was stunned. Shouldn't I have encountered trouble on my first day of school? Shaking his head, he felt that perhaps he was overthinking. In the conversation with Ganglishi, he did not hear any news about Wolverine Logan at school. Generally, all the major events of X.Men in his memory are related to Wolverine. However, vigilance is still necessary, and he decided not to engage in extreme training for the next few days. He will start after thoroughly familiarizing himself with the school situation. However, shortly after the four of Hawking left the cafeteria, a muscular man with a big beard, wearing a leather jacket and smoking a cigar, strode into the cafeteria. "Hey, Yug, give me a dinner." "Logan, when did you come back?" "The matter has been completed." Yug laughed heartily when he saw Logan. The two of them are the only two smoking enthusiasts in the entire school. They used to smoke and chat together in the cafeteria. "I just came back less than 3 hours ago, and things didn't get done. The address the professor gave me didn't have anything. I wanted to come back and ask the professor for help to take a look at my brain, but he left school for something and even asked me to be a nanny here for a few days." Logan pulled out a cigar and threw it to Yug, complaining. Yug took the cigar and lit it. "No wonder I haven't seen the professors tonight." "Oh, I'm sorry you're a bit late. The school has a new child who is very good at eating today. He has eaten all the ingredients I've had for the past 2 days." "Okay, it seems like I'm going to the refrigerator on the second floor and maybe I can find some snack mats." Logan looked at the clean kitchen and had no choice but to turn around and leave. Although he doesn't eat anything and it won't have any impact, the hunger sensation of not eating will still persist. On the other hand, after returning to his room for hundreds of warmed-up exercises before going to bed, Hawking took a shower in the bathroom, changed into pajamas, and sat cross-legged on the bed. "Since I don't plan to do extreme physical exercise these days, let's spend more time on chi consolidation training." I saw him stretch out his middle finger, then concentrate his thoughts on it. A white energy began to slowly condense, then shook and disappeared again. Chi is a term for energy, and any living life, even flowers and plants, contains chi. The Gui Xian Lu's Gui Pai Qigong concentrates the chi in the body and unleashes a powerful destructive energy attack. Although Hawking's current physical strength may not be able to perform turtle-style Qigong like the 13-year-old Wukong, he still has Wukong's memory and can sense the chi in his body, and then slowly exercise. "I can't use the turtle-style Qigong later on, so it's good to use a regular Kaibal first. When the body is strong enough in the future and the mastery of chi becomes more proficient, it is not impossible to research and develop some chi-related moves on your own. For example, if you are willing to spend time, you can definitely come up with research on techniques such as Yamu T's Chi Bullet, Dumpling's Cave Wave, Tianjin Fan's Sun Fist, and Qin's Chi Yuan Slash. Dong! 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 Just as Hawking was finally able to hold a pinball-sized air bomb on his middle finger, the door suddenly rang. Getting up and opening the door, Xia Wangda and Xia Petro, wearing pajamas and holding pillows, stood at the door. "Hawking, We can't sleep and want to be with you." It turned out that the two siblings had just arrived in this unfamiliar environment and were both scared when they stayed in their rooms, so they ran over to find their brother Hawking, who could bring them a sense of security. "Come on in." Hawking touched the heads of the two and led them in. Wanda and Pietro are only 10 years old now, and it is normal for them to have some fear when compared to normal children in 2nd and 3rd grade. After waiting for a few days to get familiar with this place, it will naturally be fine.